Hey there, island dreamers, locals, and anyone craving a slice of paradise. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to the Fun in Key West podcast, where the vibe is always laid back, the stories are salty, and the drinks, well, they're definitely frozen. I'm your host, Michelle O'Connor, your unofficial tour guide to the Conquered Republic. Whether you're planning your first trip, your fifth trip, or you're just daydreaming about trading the cubicle for the ocean breeze, you are in the right place. Here's the deal. This podcast is your insider's guide to all things Key West. We're talking where to eat, hello, conch fritters and key lime pie, where to drink, spoiler alert, there will be rum, where to stay, and all the quirky, wonderful things that make Key West the one-of-a-kind paradise we all love. Plus, we'll keep you up to date on the latest happenings, festivals, events, maybe even the occasional Hemingway look-alike sighting. And just to keep things spicy, we'll be bringing on some amazing guests now and then, locals, business owners, and people who know the island like the back of their sandy hand. So grab your flip-flops, pour yourself a cold one, and let's escape to the island state of mind together, whether you're tuning in from your hammock or your commute, while wishing it was a hammock. We've got all the Key West goodness coming your way. Thanks for being here. It's going to be a lot of fun in Key West. Let's dive in. Welcome. Today, we are diving into the heart and soul of Key West, beyond the lively streets and iconic porches, into the stories and spaces that make this island so unique. I'm thrilled to be joined by Nick Green, the executive director of the Old Island Restoration Foundation. This nonprofit has been preserving Key West's architecture, culture, and history since 1960, and they're the force behind the oldest house museum and gardens and the beloved Key West home tour. Together, we're going to explore how they're keeping the spirit of Key West alive, the challenges of historic preservation, and the fascinating stories behind the island's oldest treasures. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's uncover the magic of Key West.
Welcome to Fun in Key West, where every day feels like a mini fest. Grab a drink, take it slow. We'll show you where the locals go. Food, fun, and stories to tell. Hidden gems you know so well. Your Key West experts here to say it's fun in Key West every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Fun in Key West podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I am really excited because I think Key West has a way of making us fall in love with what is behind the gate, behind the porch, and tucked inside of all those really amazing historic homes in Key West. But today, we're talking to somebody who's going to tell us about the work that they're doing to preserve these stories, these spaces, and actually, I think the soul of Key West. So today, I am so excited. I am joined by Nick Green, Executive Director of the Old Island Restoration Foundation, the nonprofit behind the oldest house museum and gardens and the beloved Key West home tour. OIRF has been part of preserving and celebrating Key West architecture, culture, and history since 1960. And I'm excited to dig into not just what they do, but how they actually do the work behind the scenes, the stuff that you don't really get to see all the time. But before we jump into all of that, I always like to start with the person behind the work because there's always a story there. So, Nick, let's start with you. Give us a little bit of background about you. How did you end up in Key West and what brought you into this role?
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Michelle. That's a complicated question. How did we get here? I come from a background of international development primarily. So I started working for the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, and I was abroad in the Middle East, in South America, Central America, Southeast Europe. And basically, we were doing political. This is when I started international development. I've worked for a variety of organizations, United Nations related organizations. I've been seconded by the U.S. Department of State to work for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. and a lot of different private contractors that are funded by State Department or USAID, when USAID now really doesn't exist anymore. Um, but so what I was doing mostly is political development, and part of that political development, working with local townspeople, mayors, working with elected representatives, working on how we can go ahead and, I don't want to say export, but help people understand the democratic system that we have, so we can go ahead and these fledgling countries that maybe came out of war, or maybe came out of poverty, or maybe are looking to transition into a democracy, show them like how we do it here in the States. And we would use consultants and different people from all over the world. But so what I got eventually niched into was philanthropy, nonprofit management. So then when I wanted to come back to the States, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to come back where I wasn't gone too long, because once you're gone forever and you're an expat, it's hard to get back. So,
That's
so
what I
then me and my wife, we spent a lot of time in Florida. I worked in philanthropy in Fort Lauderdale and in Naples. And then we were thinking just last year to go back abroad, because then we're getting close to the point where we want to decide what we're going to do for the last 10 years before we kind of think about retiring. And we don't have any kids, so we have a lot of freedom to do what we want.
heard.
But we always loved coming to Key West, and we would just even do it. We started during COVID, because you can't travel a lot. And so we would come down to Key West. We thought it was easy to drive down here. We really fell in love with it. We thought if we wanted to stay in Key West, or in the States, the only place we would maybe want to do it would be Key West. So then we started doing some work, looking at how we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some consulting connections before, and through different parties, ended up connecting with the Old Island Restoration Foundation, and here we are.
Wow. So have you, are you personally drawn to the historic preservation, or is it something that you decided that with my background, it makes sense?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. What's interesting about Key West is that it's, when you came down here. So when we first came to Key Largo, and that was the first time we ever came down to to the Keys. And then we went down to Key West and thought, wow, this is really different. There's that whole party scene, which is fun. And then when the first time you come down to Key West and you go down to Duval, it is fun. It's really cool to sit there and say, I can have a pina colada at 1 a.m. and walk down the street, and I'm not going to get in trouble. Right. But then you notice at the same time, it's not just about that. There's so many different architecturally cool houses and buildings and history. And you can see that it's old as well. It's not like the rest of mainland Florida, where a lot of it is new. You look at the streets, the developments, and the gated communities. This place still has a history that almost looks like it could be anywhere in the continental U.S. It's older. So you see all that, and we started getting drawn into the history of it, and started reading more about it and how it came to be. Then you see the museums, and all of a sudden it wasn't necessarily the preservation that landed us here. It was the way the result of the preservation. What you see. Because otherwise, then I learned the backstory when we started interviewing with our president, Nance Frank, and learning about the organization, how the preservation came to be. Because I just knew there were these really cool houses that looked really nice and old, but I didn't know that there was a struggle to keep them here. So then, naturally, then I got more involved into the preservation and the history of it, and you grow to like it. So that's kind of how I came to be here.
Yeah, and I have to say, the more time I spend in Key West and dig into the history and how Key West is so pivotal and connected to, maritime history, American history,
Right.
longtime history, and having that, and you walk around and you see all the old homes, and it's like it's still there. It's not like, well, there was a house here and now it's not. Yeah, you get really attached and ingrained in seeing those homes being protected. Was there something about the job that surprised you after you took it?
Well, backtracking a little bit about how when you mentioned preservation, part of it, and that I was interested with the job was that we were at the time, Key West, the city was nominated to be an UNESCO Creative City. Not UNESCO, not a UNESCO Heritage Site. That's something different. American soil, we're not eligible to be an UNESCO Heritage Site, but an UNESCO Creative City. And those are in different categories. There's literature, architecture, culinary. There's 13, I think, different categories. And at the time, what was interesting for me, because of my international background, I not only would get to run the nonprofit and learn new things vis-a-vis restoration in a museum, but I would get to actually use my skills in international diplomacy and international development to help us get the UNESCO nod, which was super interesting. To make a long story short, we didn't end up getting the nod. We got far. We're going to make another shot at it again, but you can't be eligible for another 3.5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So that was, it's not a surprise that it was part of the job, but it was part of it that attracted me to it because I felt like it was a perfect world. And the other thing with Key West is it's really unique is like you almost feel like you're in an expat community, but you're in your home country because it's so diverse and so many different people from all over the world are here that you feel like you're kind of getting away from it all, like in the old days of like the Beatniks or Ernest Hemingway and those guys were, but you're still on American territory, right? So there's no junta that's going to come down on you, or you can speak English and all that stuff. So I think I don't, I think I'm surprised a little bit about is the depth and the tangential relationships that a museum has because it's not just a nonprofit that does restoration and celebrates history and intangible heritage, but it's also a day museum. It's open every day. It's a business. I mean, it's a nonprofit that runs it, but it's something that's open to the public. So there's so many different facets related to it, which makes it really cool. It's never boring here.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that's a good segue into, so if somebody is just now hearing about the Old Island Restoration Foundation, what is it? Tell us a little bit about what it is.
Sure. It was founded in 1960, and it was founded with the idea that it was local advocacy groups, mostly led by women, that decided that they had the foresight to see that this beautiful part of Key West, this part of our country, the Keys, was about to go under the demolition wrecking ball with modernization and hotels and businesses, and it was going to be another culture or another tourist spot. Much like other parts of our country and the rest of the Keys, you wouldn't be able to differentiate from it. And amazingly, at the time, so if the organization started in 1960, that means these local activists had to start thinking about something was up in 1950, mid 50s or something, because you don't just all of a sudden overnight create an organization to advocate for something. So it was a problem that people saw, and I know the Women's Club were involved and others, and that's how it started. So they formed, the easiest way when we're talking about developing a democracy and going abroad, the American way is if you see a problem, you organize around it, you advocate, you form an organization, go ahead and talk to the mayor, talk to local representatives, and that's the American way of democracy. That's when de Tocqueville came here, for example. That's one thing he noticed and brought back with him to France. So that's what they did, and so they became an organization. They got some power, and that's how they started. So they were able to stop the wrecking ball, and then over time, the organization developed and became stronger and became more involved in different activities. But it really focused at the time was keeping the old historic wooden district, those houses intact, and it succeeded in doing that to a large extent. And eventually, HARC came out of that, different codes and policies and regulations for what you can do in the district, and that's why it's here today. So when you were mentioning before at the beginning that preservation is an everyday thing here, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to want to change that if they can get away with it. So that's why the work of what we do and others around us now, it's not just us anymore, that it's so important every day.
Has the mission evolved over time, or is it still core of what it started with in 1960?
Well, I don't think there's a fear of a wrecking ball anymore. That's when it started in 1960, it was an immediate threat that needed to be stopped, and other parts of the island were already wrecked. So I guess there was I wasn't around back then, but from what I hear, that there was even a lot more of this intangible heritage that would have been around if people started earlier to save it. So I think over time it's taken on many hats because it started as a volunteer organization back in 1960, evolved over time where it had its ebbs and flows, more situations where it had more funding, it had a stronger community presence. There were other times when went back to a complete volunteer organization, where it was just the museum where people would come in and there was no entry fee. I should go back that like when OIRF started, it was for the reasons I mentioned, but in 1974, this is a connection to the museum because this is what people see now. Yeah. What happened then was there was the Watlington House and the
Mhm.
museum here. So that became something that a woman from Isla Morada came and wanted to buy it because she didn't want it to go to the wrecking ball because there wasn't really. I'm not clear exactly how it was, but there was an opportunity to maybe do something with this place that people didn't want to do that was against what OIRF was standing for.
Right.
So she bought it, decided she was going to live in it, and then decided, well, wow, this is way too much effort to make this house really what I want it to be. So she donated to the state of Florida, and the state of Florida then went and developed a relationship with OIRF, and OIRF became kind of like the organization that runs it, and it's been running it since 1974. So its initial mission of OIRF went to let's save Key West and its intangible heritage and architecture to now let's save the oldest house in Tom Major's garden, which it is really literally the oldest house. Now people say, they'll ask me that, goes, is it really the oldest house? And well, it's the oldest house standing, right? There were older houses and things before, but it's the oldest house still to this day. And that's the primary mission of OIRF, is to make sure that this house stands, a garden stands, but it also has evolved into a lot of different things. We do a lot of community related events to help people understand that this is what we're about. So we have programs with the schools where children come in grade schools, and they have a day, mostly during summer camps when they're out of school, and they get to act like it was how it was in like 1829, 1840. The way the house is set up, it's about 1829 to 1845, how life would look at that point. And then we come in the back, and there's like 8, 9 different games that you learn, and they're all like, they're not digital games. There's no like iPads and stuff like that. It's what kids used to do back in 1840 or something. So we teach the kids here now. That's how it used to be. So we do a lot of programming with the community related to the children in the summer. But we have, like you mentioned at the beginning, the home tours. We have the conch shell blowing contest. We have other things that we do. We have various guest speakers that come on the property and talk about different things related to the history of the times. And there's a lot of different things we do.
There's a whole lot of things that you do.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, if you have any comments or any questions, put them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer those. So rolling into the oldest house, it's on Duval Street, and
Right.
You really can't miss it. It is well worth the price of admission to go in because, like you said, it's the oldest standing house. It wasn't always in that spot. It was moved many, many years ago. But and as you take the tour, you learn all about that. What is one detail in the house or the garden that visitors often overlook or skip over, but they really shouldn't?
I think it's the overall concept of understanding that what you're looking at. I think people will go a little too quickly and they'll walk around and they're focusing on what they see, the aesthetics, the furniture, the layout, and so they imagine themselves in that time. And what we're trying to do to enhance the visitor experience so they don't overlook this kind of stuff is we're putting it onto StoryQ, where it's basically an electronic platform where it's going to take you, like when you go ahead and pay your membership fee or your entrance fee, you have a QR code and you can tap your phone to it, and all of a sudden it'll take you into like a digital tour. So in theory, if nobody was there and you didn't want to have a docent or anybody like that, you can go room to room and see a lot of different things from different angles. And that I can talk more about what we're going to do with that. But I think the biggest thing people will miss is they'll go a little too fast, and they'll not ask themselves, well, gee, what happened like before they were living here? The later, why is this place here? Why is it so important? And what's so important is it's the frontier of Florida. This is how Florida looked before the Hemingway home, before all the authors and literary figures started coming here, before it became famous, when it was a fishing village, a maritime place, a wrecker's business. That's when Key West started. Key West was the largest city, or the wealthiest city per capita, when it was a wrecking industry. So I think, and because this is what happened to me, so that's why I think, and I've talked about it with other people, it's like I never thought about the history behind an oldest house. I'm like, it was just cool enough to see really old stuff that looked like life in 1840, but to know the history and surrounding it, it makes you start thinking what was across the street from the oldest house at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes you want to sit there. And how many daughters did the captain have while they lived there?
You had nine. They had nine daughters. Two of them died when they were, one was 4 years old and one was a little bit older. So it ended up really being seven that lived, beyond like 6, 7 years old. And the house was like you mentioned, it wasn't always at 322 Duval. It was basically on Whitehead. So the
Hmm.
property was all the way from Duval to Whitehead, and the house itself was in the back. But it started flood. A lot of flooding took place with the salt marshes and things like that. So they literally had mules, put it up and push it over a little bit to the side here. And that's when they started augmenting it to, when the daughters started growing, having more kids, they built more onto it. They built a room here. It wasn't all built at one time. It was
Right.
built over a period of time to what it is today. And some of it is even gone. There were in the back there were houses that were built. We just did an excavation a few months ago.
Mm.
There are houses back there that were built that were for boarders or for barns or for livestock, for animals. So it looks different now than it did back then.
Yeah, and absolutely make sure that you do the gardens in the back because you still have the cookhouse back there. And
Right.
I think people don't realize because of the heat and the safety of the home, it was just much easier. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was just much easier to have all the cooking done outside.
Yeah, it was a way to go, not just here, but everywhere at the
Mhm.
time. I mean, you really faced a serious threat of fire.
Mhm.
That's the first thing, and the second thing was just unbearably hot. I mean, maybe if you're up in Canada in the woods and you want to keep your house like this version of the oldest house in Manitoba or something, you're going to put the kitchen inside because it helped keep the house warm. Here was the opposite. You didn't want that. You wanted things to keep cooler. That's why the ceilings are high. That's why the doors and windows all align for a breeze to come through. And that's why you kept the kitchen outside. You had a service window in the back
Mhm.
where people then would cook in the kitchen and then take it to a window, and then you take it to the plate or to the table or wherever you're going. But the kitchen itself was, yeah, it was a very basic kitchen. You could do a lot of baking at the time. It was big, a big oven. I can't exactly if they use coal or wood, or probably a lot of times wood. But you can take a look at it. It's still intact the way it is, which should be noted. It's actually the oldest kitchen standing in Key West. It's outside as well. So
It's an
um,
amazing thing, and you've kind of given us a sneak peek. But for those who have not been through the oldest house for a while, you've got some upgrades coming, and we're going to encourage people to go back in every time you're in town. Just pop in, visit, right? Because you're going to be doing some upgrades.
yeah, we have. Well, we have in the back. There's what's called the cistern room. We're going to change it to the exhibit room. It's one of the rooms that used to be used for. It's literally where the cistern was. So you'd open up. That's how people got water. I mean, just real quick, there was only rainwater. That was your fresh water. So you'd save it into a cistern, and you go down and get it and pail it out. There was no. You couldn't dig wells here because you just hit salt water. So now was it 19. I don't remember the exact date, but main water, fresh water was piped in from the mainland, and that's how water is here today. But there's those things are we have roving exhibits back there. So we currently have a really cool exhibit I can tell you about. Then we have the captain's room, which is in the back, which has, and we just upgraded this, I don't know, about 6 months ago,
Hmm.
different navigational maps that are up there that literally mariners used to use. Some of our copies, we have a couple original in there too. That it's on one page, basically what we have as a painting right now is what they used to stand on a ship with and go, this is where we're going to go.
Wow.
So it's absolutely amazing. It's legitimate, stuff like that. We have we've had some money. We're partnering with a tourist development council to do some improvements in the house as well. So it's an old house, and you see some painting and peeling going on. So we're going to start these projects starting October 1st in 2026, fiscal year 26-27, where we're going to fix some of the windows, do refurbishments inside the house. It's a very painstaking process because you have to adhere to the rules and regulations, and you can't just go ahead and slap it around and fix it the way you want. You have to make sure it's a national register of historic places, so you have to adhere by those rules. But we're going to fix the outhouse and back too, which is legitimately the original one. They move it around because that's what they had to do back then.
Right.
That's the way it worked. But there's a lot of different improvements that we're going to do to make the house aesthetically more I think it's already super pleasing, but just keep it so it's on people's eyes,
Yeah.
people's in front of their minds and want to stop in. But we also have a new catering kitchen, which is also another topic. But yeah,
Yeah.
we have a lot of cool improvements to the house that are going to make it, and enhance the experience for visitors.
That's awesome. Are there any restrictions in terms of anybody trying to visit the home if they have mobility issues?
No, we have an ADA compliant ramp in the back, which you can take through all the way from the front. We have two gates on the side, so you can come in on the one side and just go up the ramp, and you can go throughout the entire property. You can get into the house that way as well. There's a second floor to the home, but you can't go up there anyway. Nobody can. That's where I'm sitting right now. This is where our offices are. It's where some of our storage is. But no, if you want to come in here, don't worry about that. You'll be able to traverse the entire property.
That's awesome. Which brings me to a really good question. It sounds like there is an awful lot of work that the OIRF does. And so, is this a big operation? Do you have a large staff? Do you have volunteers? How do you get all this work done?
No, it's a small organization, and it's evolving. It went through a lot of transition in the last few years, so we're hoping to bring it some stability now. But we have me. We have a staff of one, two, three, four, five,
Wow.
and then we have a volunteer network of about 150 people that get us through all these different kind of events. And without them, it would be almost impossible to do, because we wouldn't be able to contract staff for that. It would just there wouldn't be a fundraiser anymore. You would just be paying to do the home tours that you would then end up getting no proceeds to put back into the nonprofit. So our volunteers are super super important. We wouldn't be able to do this without them. And yeah, so we have about 150 volunteers. We're looking to expand into different partner with different organizations and bring different kind of volunteers as well.
That's awesome. So that leads into, you've alluded to, y- it's a nonprofit, which means you need to be funded. And in today's environment, nonprofits are struggling to get some funding. I know that. So you have money. You manage the oldest house, and with the money that you bring in, that helps kind of offset, I assume, the maintenance and the upkeep on that. But you also do the home tours, which I think is one of your biggest fundraisers that you do every year, right?
Right.
And so give us a
Right.
little bit about the home tour and what's that like?
Okay. Well, the home tours are really interesting because they've been around for 65 years, I think. Our conch shell contest, one of them 66 and the other one 65. So that's a long time.
A long
So the
time.
home tours are, I there's something that I'm learning a lot about. Um, they started with the idea that, with all this architecture that we saved, that the OIRF did, that it'd be cool. People like when they come down here, they'd like to see what these houses look like.
Mhm.
They're so unique because there's nowhere else in Florida you can see something like this. Nowhere else in our country that you can see something like this. Maybe some old towns in Savannah, Georgia, and things like that. So the concept came that we would have to go to the homeowner. These are legitimate private homes. Nothing is staged of like this is a fake private home or something, and we're just going to give you a tour. It started where people literally gave up their home to visitors to come and take a tour. And our docents, all the docents, which are like tour guides, that work the home tours are all our volunteers too, and they're a lot of them are residents, a lot of them some of them are snowbirds. We've even had tourists that have been here for like a month or two become a docent, and they're the ones that right. And then we go in, we do research on the house,
Mhm.
and that's with the homeowners themselves. They tend to know a lot. People that have these houses that are these old architectural gems in the old town, once they get the house, they end up learning a lot about it. They go to the library, they do their own research. So we work with them mostly to see what the information is about the house. So
Mhm.
the docents have information to share with the public when they come in. Um, and then we do our own research as well. We have staff, a couple of our staff are, one of them, Toby, is a seventh generation conch. She's been here forever, and she knows everything that there is to know about Key West. And we know all the people in the library. So then the idea is when we do these home tours, like when people come to see these homes, it's not just walking in and like you're looking to buy a house. It's you actually really learn about the home itself and its history and the painting. Every house is different. The gardens related to it, and they happen once a year, but they're spread out for December, January, February, and March,
Yeah.
twice a month. So a total of 4 months, 8 tours. Um, and the houses are different every month. So Friday and Saturday, we try to do them on a Friday and Saturday. And so it's the same house on Friday, 5 houses, same on Saturday. Then in January, we get 5 new ones, and et cetera, et cetera. Um, and the challenge is, just to get, we don't want to do repeat homes, at least not ones that have been around for like at least over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a mix of people. Obviously, there's a lot of locals that do these home tours that come and want to do them again and again and again and love them. And we also have a lot of visitors that come and say, hey, this sounds like a really cool thing to do. Right now, admission is $55 if you're just coming off the street, or $45 if you're a member of OIRF. And our next one's starting December. So we just finished our March ones a few weeks ago, and we're already planning again for what we're going to do. We're going to try to soup them up a little bit this year. Maybe have at the beginning when it starts, a cocktail reception, a jazz quartet,
Ooh.
a breakfast, something that kicks off the season. And then we're going to slowly expand them to make them even better over the years, or over next year. Next year, we have the opportunity, we hope, to apply for TDC funding,
Okay.
which will help to augment the work that we do. Because all the proceeds that we get from the home tours go back into OIRF and the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can get some additional funding through private sources and the TDC to kind of step it up a little bit, then we can do more programming to help restore other houses, other historical buildings in Key West, and give little small grants with that as well.
So how do you, I'm sure you don't have any, shortage of people who want to volunteer their home, but how do you choose one of these homes to be on the tour?
Well, it's harder now to get people to, from what I understand, than it was like 20 years ago to get people to volunteer their home. And I think a lot of that happened after COVID. I think we have a little bit more of a cautious approach to, being around others and having people in your home and things like that. But there's still a lot of people here who love it and are proud to do it. Um, the volunteers, I mean, the people want the opportunity. I mean, what people realize about volunteers is that it's not always about the mission. People want to volunteer for a variety of reasons. They want to volunteer to learn things. They want to volunteer to get out of the house for a while. They want to volunteer to meet people. And a lot of the people that are volunteers, so they want to learn about these different homes and understand them, meet neighbors. They do it to meet each other. So a lot of our volunteers want to go ahead and volunteer, maybe as a group, like two. One woman will want her best friend to be there with her, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or his buddy to go ahead and do that. So getting volunteers is, I want to say, it's difficult. It's not difficult. It's easy. It's sometimes you have a problem of too many people wanting to volunteer in 1 month and not having enough volunteers in a different month. So, but it's great. People have loved us. They take pride in doing this. It's a unique thing. There are other cities in the countries that have home tours, but nothing like this. Key West is really unique.
Yeah, what I'm going to do for just for the notes and everything, there will be a link to your guys' organization in the show notes so that people can start to tee up and get that on their calendar if they're coming down
Cool.
to Key West in December, January, February, March, because I think it's important to be able to partake in a lot of these other events. And so you alluded to the conch blowing contest. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, conch blowing was something that it's not unique to here. It's there's Hawaiians do it, in Asia they do that, but it's unique in our country, that's for sure, outside of Hawaii. And it started like, it's now a fun event, but the history behind it is really, really interesting. It's, Key West, the way it was really founded and the way it made its money, the way it developed, was through the wrecking industry. And wrecking's a bit of a misnomer because it's really the salvaging industry. Like when I first heard wrecking, like who goes around wrecking stuff? I hear a wrecking ball, and I thought, oh, IRF was supposed to stop the wrecking ball.
Right.
That started. But wrecking actually means, literally, because where we are here, for people that don't know, we're north and we're right by the Florida Straits. So this is fast moving water, really fast current. And there's, the coral reef around here. So back in the days when wrecking was, this house was built around 1829. So the wrecking industry was probably right about that time in its peak, into maybe 1850, 1860, and a little bit beyond that. And so what would happen was, these people would come through, would trade with Cuba and all that, and they would literally wreck on a reef because they didn't have the navigational tools that they have right now. So what Key Westers would do is they would have the platforms that they build on their house, and they would look with their binoculars or whatever they had at the time, and they would see a wreck, and then they would blow the conch horn, the conch shell. So, and you would all of a start seeing or hearing a cacophony of tons of conchs blowing at the same time, and that was a signal that there was a wreck on the reef. And boats then would set out to go ahead and be the first ones to get there, and whoever got there first, where first you save the people, obviously, that were there, and then you go ahead and try to salvage whatever was left of the wreck. So it wasn't that deep, so you can still go underwater and get a lot of stuff, pull it out. You bring it back to the mainland, and then whoever was there first, and then you split it up the way you do depending on the contract, and that's how the wrecking industry started. So conch shell blowing was basically the signal that there's a wreck out on the reef. So come out and get there first, and try to save the people and salvage the stuff.
That's awesome. And when is that normally?
We had it this past year. It was March 7th. We're going to keep it in March, most likely.
Okay.
There's I think the International Conch Festival in April here, but we're going to be the only ones to keep our conch shell blowing contest in the beginning of March.
That's awesome.
And what's amazing about it, it's a free event. There's different categories: kids, 0 to 12, boys, girls, different kind of categories that we have. But what I'm amazed at is that there are children that participate, of course, but it's mostly people that are retired that love to go ahead and form groups and have different kind of like dresses that they put on, and they just love to do this thing. And you would think kids would love to do it, but it's actually the adults that love it even more.
Yeah. And so if you're not able to blow one, but really want to have a fun time, I think it's an event that you should put on your calendar. And it's going to be definitely on our calendar of events. So you guys do a lot of work. So what is the risk if organizations like yours don't exist?
That's a really good question. I think that's, the way I look at it when I frame things to people, like imagine if we weren't here, what this place would look like.
Hmm.
What would today? And that kind of what you're saying is how would it look like in the future if it wasn't here? I think that, part of when we're looking to get an UNESCO Creative City, be nominated as one of those, is that it adds further insurance to what we already have. And we have Hark now, and I think that's really important. I think the mindset of everybody here is, we're not going to go back. The wrecking ball is not going to come. I think that's, this is my opinion. I think that's pretty safe and secure. It could backslide a little bit, but I think it's still important that if we don't have the people around there that are raising awareness about it, and if we don't have these children programs to come into the place and see it and experience it, because they're the ones that are going to grow up and going to be the ones that say, hey, I want to keep this the way it is. And if you don't have a connection with it as a kid, you might grow up and not even appreciate it anymore, and it'll go away. So I think it's so important. Why it's important to have an organization like this and others is to have young people maintain their awareness of where they're from, where they are, so it stays this way. Otherwise, it's going to be very different. So I think it's always important to never take for granted what you have. It's always make sure that there's someone there who's making sure that things are going the way people want them to go, and that's just again anything, whether it's the environment, architectural stuff, democracy, culinary scenes, museums, whatever you want. There's always have to be champions of that to make sure it stays.
Yeah. Which leads then to the question of if somebody is listening and they want to support OIRF, what are the best ways to get involved?
Well, the best way would start with being a member. I mean, that's really important. I mean, we started $100 for an individual membership, and there's different tiers that go much higher. And with that individual membership, you are automatic. You can come to the oldest house in Tom Major's Garden whenever you want, unlimited. You can bring your children too. Kids. I should note that anybody in the Monroe County school system that's a student, private or public, can come in here for free anytime, all the time, and they can bring two guardians with them. So I think starting with the membership would be great. I think coming to our events, that's really, really helpful. Coming to our home tours, our conch shell blowing contests, the different speaker series we have. You can always go to our website and donate anytime. It's one click away. That's super easy and that's super helpful. And you can put it towards something if you want to. For example, we're going to do our ideas. We're almost positive, but we're not 100% sure, but we think we're going to do it, is going to do a gingerbread building event here in December. This is something that the OIRF used to do prior to COVID, but hasn't done since then. And that's something, if you want to sponsor an event like that, we're currently looking for a sponsor for that would help pay for like the graham crackers and the stuff you cut it with, the tables, a wax paper, just supplies to make a gingerbread building event go off the way it is. And that would be super helpful. So any way that you want to volunteer would be super helpful. Volunteering is important as well. It's like to volunteer, and if you don't want to give cash or something like that, or you could volunteer, and that's super helpful. You could donate a property. You can donate, put us in your will. There's a lot of ways that you can help us.
That's awesome. And you don't have to live in Key West full time to be able to help and to contribute to what you're doing, right?
No, it's funny. I was saying our database is about 150 volunteers. More than half of them are snowbirds and don't live here all the time.
Yeah.
They just love coming back here even for a few months and getting involved. It's, they come year after year, so they're essentially part of the community. Obviously, they want to be involved in community activities while they're here. So no, you don't have to be a Key West resident, and we'd love to have you. You can come here for, 2 weeks out of the year, and we'd love to have you work with us.
That's awesome. And I think it's such a great organization. The mission is, and just, it fills my heart because I just love being able to talk about all the history in Key West, and everything that you guys do is amazing. Before we end, I'll let anybody that's watching pop in any questions in the comments or in the chat. But I always ask people that come on certain questions. So since you are already in Key West, what is your go-to place for breakfast?
For breakfast, I don't really eat a big breakfast. I eat that kind of continental breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So I go across the street to Wicked Lick, and I like they have a really good banana bread with my coffee I get. It's fantastic.
I love doing work coffee, man. Daniel over there is
right, hard work. Them exactly. Daniel and his wife do a fantastic job. That's probably my favorite place. And sometimes I'll get a croissant at Frenchie's.
Okay.
But those are I'm not really a breakfast person, but I like those little, those are my two favorite places if I want to get something.
And so would I be assuming that your favorite go-to place in town for coffee is doing work coffee across the street?
Yes, absolutely. I go there almost every day. So I get a free coffee quite often.
He does an amazing coffee over there, and the collaboration with Key West Key West First Legal Distillery, it makes that coffee even that much better. I'm just saying.
Those beans are delicious, and don't worry, you can have the rum soaked beans with their you don't get drunk off of it. That's all the alcohol is roasted out. You just get the beautiful flavor.
It is. So, what's your go-to place for dinner?
We like Salute. I think I like, to get, because I'm on Duval all the time and in the heart of all this stuff. So we like to go to Salute, which is a little bit out of it. And then, you get the beautiful breeze. You watch people play volleyball. The food is great. You have a full bar. So it's, that's probably Salute.
And then favorite happy hour?
Favorite happy hour? That's a really good question. There's a lot of them. Well, Salute actually has a good happy hour too, but we like to go to, I think it's at the Roost.
I like the Roost.
That's a really cool place. I don't think I've ever gone there for a happy hour or noticed it's a happy hour, because we end up getting whatever we want to drink and it's probably not on happy hour, but I like that. That's a really cool place to go. So that's probably our favorite place to go for a cocktail.
Yeah, I do like the Roost. They do amazing cocktails there. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want our viewers and listeners to know more about that we didn't cover?
Sure. When you're asking about how do we get our funding, and we are a non-for-profit, how do we sustain ourselves? Donations and grants are the biggest. But another big one is, obviously we have a $10 admission fee for when you come in, and that goes back into it. So we'd really like people that are from here to come here and check it out. When we were doing the Bronson Arroyo concert as part of our baseball and art program, I was on the radio for Conktown Live a few times with Jack Niles and Mr. Diaz, and we would Lopez, and then we would have these discussions about the oldest house in the history, and then those guys would talk about when they were here a long time ago growing up that they would never come here. They would maybe be here once or twice, and then they started talking about with their friends, and they're like, there's a lot of people that are from here, born and raised, that maybe came once for a wedding or something like that, or some that have never come at all. So we encourage people that are local to really come and check it out. It's a part of your history. It's absolutely fantastic. And when you have a moment, come and check it out. But we also, in order to sustain ourselves, we do lease out our property. So we have, our garden is absolutely fantastic. Just not even 5 years, less than 5 years ago, we had a benevolent donor and who wants to go unnamed came and helped us to go ahead and get the garden to where it is today right now. And the vast majority of stuff in that garden is endemic to Florida. And a lot of it is indigenous to the Keys themselves. So you get to see some really beautiful stuff. Weddings, private events, celebrations, whatever you want to do, poetry readings. We have a special price for nonprofits if they want to hold their event here, and also for private events. And we just finished our catering kitchen not even a couple months ago, and it's a James Beard inspired catering kitchen. It was done by Dickie Brennan, who is a famous restaurateur out of New Orleans, and he designed it along with some other people here. And it's the only place in town that's located on a historic place such as this, where it's a full service professional catering kitchen. So if you want to have a highline event, or even if you want to make it more lowbrow, you're going to hire the caterer and everything like that, or do that part. But the caterer doesn't have to cook it at some point, drag it across town or something like that, and then make sure it somehow stays warm or cold or whatever. They can do it right here on premise. We have everything they need to do, which makes it much easier for them. The food is fresher. You can do stuff here that you couldn't do in other places. So I would really take advantage of this opportunity. If you want to celebrate any kind of private celebration, come with us and do it.
I'm telling you that in the location, you can't beat it. The garden's
Right.
beautiful. And I just think it's the great location. So, well, thank you, Nick. This has been such a great conversation. And I think it really it reiterates the fact that Key West is so much more than, just Duval Street in a party town. This is a place that was proactive in saving their history so that we can enjoy that today. And it's not only protecting the spaces but the stories. And so as you tour the oldest house, you're going to hear the stories about the captain and his family, and you can start to visualize them living in that house. But I also think that what you all do helps to keep the spirit of Key West, active and alive. And it really, to me, makes sense that Key West is what it is because of the efforts of people like you and your organization. So a huge thanks to Nick and the Old Island Restoration Foundation for being with me today. And if you want to learn more, I'm going to put a link in to the foundation's website. Be sure to check them out. If you're in Key West and you haven't been to the oldest house in a while, go in, pay the fee. I hear people as I'm walking around saying, yeah, I don't know, do we really want to pay the $10? Yes, you do, because you've heard from Nick that money goes back to help keep the oldest house in its perfect state, and help support the work and the efforts that they're doing. So absolutely, we want to keep them supported, and so that they can keep Key West history alive. Anything else you want to add, Nick?
No, thank you so much. It's great. I mean, it's like you said, it is worth the $10. We're open every day from 10 to 4. The only time we're closed is Christmas Day. Otherwise, we try to stay open all the time, all the other days. Depending, sometimes if we had maybe a refurbishment or something that we're doing for a day or two, then we'll close. But we're open for the vast majority of those days. The $10 is well worth it. You can spend 2 hours in here if you really want to. And you can bring a $15 cocktail in here if you want, and go in the garden and enjoy it. So it's really worth the $10. You're going to love it. You won't regret it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining me. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for being part of the Fun in Key West community. And with that, you guys have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye, Michelle.
Wow, what an incredible conversation with Nick. It's clear that the Old Island Restoration Foundation is doing vital work to preserve not just the physical space of Key West, but its stories, culture, and soul. If you're in Key West, make sure to visit the Oldest House Museum and Gardens. It's more than worth the $10 admission. And don't forget to check out their events like the Key West Home Tour and the conch shell blowing contest. Supporting organizations like OIRF ensures that the history and charm of Key West remain vibrant for generations to come. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, stay curious, stay inspired, and I'll see you next time.